And is there a kind of point where you see and you say, you guys should be doing portfolio management? Is that a critical threshold that you've seen consistently across these companies?
I'd say yes, and it's this complexity question. So like, I wish I could say like, it's when you reach 120 people and you have 17 or more features and you have 4 technology. I don't have an answer like that because of course there's so many variables at play. But I think about organizations, they're like highly complex networks, right? Lots of little nodes connecting, and most of those are people. And there's a place where the number of connection points becomes unmanageable just by hallway conversations or Zoom meetings, or I sent out the PowerPoint deck. Doesn't everybody know what we're supposed to be doing? And there's this inflection point where the complexity of the organization reaches a point where information flow starts to fail. You got 6 different strategies in the room. Everybody thinks they're doing the right thing. It's all best intention, but why are we running in all these different directions, right? Those little signals are the moments when you start saying, we need to be more disciplined about how we think about how we're investing across all of our multitude of product opportunities. And I think sometimes people think the answer to that is just better road mapping. And I love a good roadmap. Like, don't get me wrong. I love a good roadmap, but that is not what we're talking about here, right? Like, before you even design your roadmap, there's a whole bunch of decision-making that has to happen. And then your roadmap should be continuously updating based on new information. And I think that's what we're focusing on here, is what's upstream of that.
Right. And the roadmap is basically the output of the multi-dimensional decision-making at a different level. So that you actually say, print out this is the roadmap. But tomorrow it rained and snow, guess what? That roadmap needs to change.
Yes.
Right? So you can't think about the roadmap. And I think you're so right, Rachel, is that sometimes you have a relatively small company, but you would very urgently need portfolio management because the type of work, the different variations, then the finer tooth of the market and the customer needs and so on. Sometimes you could have a fairly large organization, but because they have a slightly different product, less evolved, it's like single products, very expensive to sell to very similar kind of the customer, but it's a larger dollar. So then you could have a large company with a relatively stable, you may not need a portfolio management quite a bit later. So I think the variable really is to say the number of decision making, the number of options, and the speed of the change, and how everyone needs to be quickly aligned on what we need to work on. So it's easy to say we want to double revenue, but how? Everyone has a different idea, right? So that's where things start to break down. So that create that how we're going to double our revenue is the part or the starting part of the portfolio management.
Yeah, actually, I'll give a quick example because I think it feeds into what you were saying, Becky. I was talking with a company recently, and the nature of their product is that they have elements of their product that sit between 2 businesses. So they have this B2B piece, but also parts of their product that sit between these businesses and their consumers, right? So that B2B2C kind of system, right? And all of those constituents want different things, and they all want them right now. And so while they're not a very large company with a very complex product yet, the nature of all their different users, buyers, customers is causing so much information to come into the product organization. So much demand of like, but now we want you to do this, and they don't have the capacity to deliver on all that. So I look at that situation and I say, you've got to make some really important investment decisions, right? And you need to be responsive because they're also trying to grow as a company. So they have to think about all these different customer/user/buyers and all their different needs and figure out how to move forward with that in a logical and appropriate way, knowing that every time they do something new, they're going to learn something, right? So to me, that's a great example of it's the nature of their market itself and the way they interface with that creates their complexity.
Right.